Om Tat Sat. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading energy known as Brahman or God, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Ji Maharaj, to all the sages and saints of this world, and to each of you, divine soul, watching today's satsang. Today we will be studying Sutra number 27 from the Sadhana Pad of the Raja Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. This is a very deep sutra, and it may go a little bit longer, so let us get started. The sutra says, Tasya saptadha pranta bhumihi pragya. Let's repeat. Tasya saptadha pranta bhumihi pragya. It's a very small, short sutra, but it is very deep in its understanding, very deep in its scope. So the meaning is, Tasya is his, of the person who has attained the intuitional knowledge. Saptadha means 7 types. 7. Sapt is 7. Pranta Bhumi is at the final stage. Pragya is wisdom. So at the final stage, the wisdom of a yogi who has practiced unobstructive intuitive knowledge is of 7 type. So in the previous one we talked about, previous sutra we talked about Vivekhyati. Here we are talking about unobstructed intuitive knowledge, pragya, and that's a very advanced high state of Jivan Mukti, liberation. So this is why we are following this yoga sadhana, the path to connect with the divine energy, and that is well within our means with our self-effort and divine grace. So the explanation is, so the yogi who has attained the highest degree of yoga possesses a mind that is free from 3 types of obstructions: mala, vikshepa, avarana. Mala means impurities, so we have cleansed those impurities with our sadhana. Vikshepa are distractions, like subtle desires, gone. We have risen above those. And finally is avarana, the veil of ignorance, that small veil that is holding us between ourselves and God. So when we remove all those 3, we get this prasad of the intuitive knowledge, also known as pragya. So the 7 types, so these are of 7 types, so it's very involved, as you can see. The first 4 refer to the subjective aspect of liberation, while the last 3 are objective, which means that the first 4 we have to go through personally, individually, and then the remaining 3 are more like a byproduct of what we go through. So the first one is of the subjective type is Gyeya Shunya. Gyeya means I have known all that is to be known. So through these experiences of samadhi and your tapasya or penance, you have known all the things to be known. How do you do that? By knowing a grain of sand, you know all the grains of sands of the world. So similarly, by focusing intensely on different aspects of the samadhi process, you have known all that is to be known. For a liberated yogi, liberated means Jivan Mukt, or somebody who has transcended, passed through this cycle of life and death, never to be born again. The world of the knowable has shrunk to nothingness, which means the world does not exist for him anymore. For him, the world exists for everybody else, but for that yogi it doesn't exist, which means the importance of that becomes very small because he has known all that is to be known. It is Prakriti, nature, that expresses itself in the world of knowable objects. But when the purpose of Prakriti is fulfilled, nothing remains to be known anymore. The second state is called Heya Shunya Avastha. Avastha is state of a yogi. So here Heya means pain. So that is pain that is to be abandoned no longer exists for a yogi. So he is no longer in the cycle of pain and pleasure. He has risen above these. But the contact between the seer and seen, which is the cause of the pain, has been destroyed by what? By the removal of avidya or ignorance. So when avidya is destroyed, there is no pain, because we are essentially bliss. We are Sat Chit Ananda. But we get caught up in the illusion of the world process, and so we experience pain and pleasure. The third state is called Prapya Prapta Avastha, which means I have attained all that is to be attained. So no more hankering, no more running after material things or this or that. Internally you are satiated, fully satisfied, because you are God's energy and you have realized that energy. So during yogic practice, an aspirant endeavors to attain the state of liberation through the ascending heights of samadhi, and God also helps us when we put in sincere effort. But once the highest state of attainment is achieved, there is nothing more to be acquired. You have already achieved that state. And the fourth subjective state is called Chikirsha Shunya Avastha, which means I have done all that is to be done, therefore I don't need to do anything anymore. This is the state of a highly advanced liberated yogi. So that gives us a good goal on what we will be experiencing and what we should aspire for. So with the dawning of intuitional knowledge, the spirit becomes released from the fetters of karma, and having performed the highest act in the form of maintaining an unobstructed flow of the mind towards the self, a yogi has nothing more to do. That is the significance of these four steps. And so the remaining three, which are more objective, describe the release of a yogi from prakriti. So basically, what is the state of a liberated saint? The three states are called Chitta Sattva Kritartha, which means the Chitta of a yogi has fulfilled its purpose. Chitta is your unconscious impressions. So all the attractions in the Chitta, the thought waves, if so to speak, so that gave you the experiences of bhoga and apvarga. Bhoga is enjoyments and apvarga is release. Therefore there is no longer any need of the chitta. It has fulfilled its purpose. You have transcended it as a yogi. And the second thing that comes to you automatically is a gunatita. Gunatita is beyond the three gunas of sattva, rajas, tamas. The chitta now returns to its original source, which is prakriti or nature. And as we talked, we are beyond the three gunas, and therefore it's a transcendental state. And the last and the final step is called Atmasthiti. So the Purusha or the seer is established in his essential nature. That Purusha is your consciousness or Atma. There is no longer any identification with the thought waves of the Chitta. So the thought waves that continue to take us towards the world process are no longer needed. There is no longer the whirling wheel of birth and death, because the yogi has risen above those things, and therefore this yogi will not return to the world process anymore. He has attained Jivan Mukti, which means that your prarabdha karma or your karmas for this life, whatever is remaining, will continue to go on. But the saint has that yogi has achieved Jivan Mukti status. He has reached that point where he is liberated in life, within life. So he continues to act in the world with a placid vision of inner freedom, a Jivan Mukt. Like our Gurudev, Swami Jyotirmayananda ji, is a fully illumined, self-realized saint, and I'm trying to walk on his footsteps to also get Jivan Mukti, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. And that is the birthright actually for every one of us, if we are so pulled towards getting out of this cycle, this vicious cycle of birth and death. And therefore the need for tapasya, sadhana, prayers, scriptures. But when the prarabdha karma is exhausted, the chitta returns to its source. So that is what happens. So Jivan Mukta is still alive, but he has already achieved liberation in life. But when he dies, he becomes a Videha Mukta, which means he no longer has a de or a body. So he is liberated without the body. While he has the body, he is liberated with the body. And so he is called a Jivan Mukta, which means he is still living. And when he passes away, that is called Mahasamadhi. And that process is called Videha Mukta, liberated without the body. So this method of attaining Vivek Khyati or intuitive knowledge is described in the next sutra, which we will be covering tomorrow. Om Tat Sat.